Hello and welcome to another edition of Another Book Review. This week I'll be reviewing Catherine Lacey's The Answers. Talk a little bit about the author's background. I'll give a brief spoiler-free overview of the plot. I'll talk a little bit about what I liked about the book, what I didn't like about it, who I'd recommend the book to, and finish up with what I'll be reading for next time. So Catherine Lacey is a fairly young novelist. She has made it on a few different lists of kind of best up-and-coming authors. Her earlier novel, which I have not read, was translated into several different languages, and this novel, The Answers, has been getting a lot of positive press and a lot of positive comparisons. This is the first of any of her work that I've read. So what this is about, The Answers, is about a young woman who I believe is 30 years old, who lives in New York and has kind of a mysterious illness that can't really be explained by conventional science. In order for her to pay for kind of experimental treatments, she takes a job working for a famous actor slash director in kind of one of his experiments that he has kind of set up. And that's kind of the spoiler-free hook of the plot, which I thought was interesting. It kind of gave me similar vibes to Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind in some ways. I can't really talk too much about a lot of this because I think it would be spoiling it, so I'll try to keep it as vague as possible. So I thought that was interesting. Her writing style is a little bit more wordy, for lack of a better word, than I would kind of like. I felt like a lot of this book, there was a little bit of padding, and I wish there'd been kind of fewer words to get kind of across what she was doing. I think a lot of it is really a deep dive into the main character, who is an interesting character, has a very unique background. I felt like what this book did in some ways is there is a line between being interesting and being non-realistic, I guess is a way to say it. It's kind of like if you had a character who was a firefighter, I think that's one thing, but to make that character a ex-professional athlete, firefighter, astronaut kind of stretches incredulity of things. And there's nothing quite like that in this. It doesn't get to that extreme. But there are a lot of kind of mysterious for the sake of being mysterious characters in the novel, and I didn't quite understand why that was. I felt like there was going to be turns. I thought that there was a turn or a twist that was coming that never really came for a couple of the characters, and it may be that I just missed something and there was a deeper meaning that was revealed, but I didn't get that part of it. The plot is actually fairly straightforward, really. It's really more about this woman and her working for this actor-director and what happens to them as they go along. That being said, there are other characters who come in. There's one character who comes in like a third of the novel, and then the novel, it's similar to Day of the Locust, actually, strangely enough. The novel kind of turns and goes into her backstory. That character, I don't quite know why we needed that character's backstory. We got it. I didn't think it was particularly interesting, and I felt like stuff like that felt like more like padding to me than any kind of an integral part of this book. So that was a little frustrating. I think there is an ending to it, and I think in the author's mind, the ending was more of a twist or a surprise than the book really led you to believe. There is definitely a point at the end where you're like, oh, well, that is the reason why some of these things were happening, but it's really just kind of like, okay, well, so what? So I had kind of a little bit of a hard time with this book. Like I said, I think that the main character, while she was an interesting character, there were times where I wish her background had been a little bit less mysterious, and I think there was kind of my issue with the book as a whole. There was mysterious for being mysterious, which I didn't really care for as much. I think it was a little wordy. I think it could have been a little bit of a shorter book. I think what the book is kind of talking about, and I think that this will be more impactful for some people than others, is really kind of the nature of love, and if love is something that can be forced upon people, or if it's something that can be just organically has to happen, and why it has to happen, and kind of all those things. I hesitate to say I just wish the book could be better, because I think that's a kind of a poor criticism. But I think that the hook is for me at least, was kind of the most interesting part of the book. And I think it would have been interesting to see another author's take on it. I've kind of laid out the places where I fell flat. If you're a fan of Catherine Lacey, if you've read other of her stuff, from what I've seen, like I said, this book has been getting really good reviews and good comparisons. So you'll probably like this as well. It just kind of fell flat for me. So that's the answers. Next week I'll be reviewing Becoming Superman. I got an advanced copy of this, which is kind of a memoir of J. Michael Straczynski, who's kind of a famous in Hollywood, famous in television, famous in comic books. So he's done a lot of stuff. So it'll be an interesting read. So until next time, I will say, if you have read, to bring it back, for people who I'd recommend this book to, I'd also just say there are assaults in this book. There are sexual assaults in this book. I'm trying to think if there's anything else that I would want to tell someone before picking this up. I wouldn't give this to a high school audience. I'd maybe save it for a college audience. But that's about it. So until next time, bye.